The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
And good morning here at 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher. We begin this morning with breaking news out of China, where a commercial airliner with 132 people on board has crashed. We're still working to see the severity of the crash, but Chinese media reports rescue crews are headed to the site of the crash, which happened on the east coast of China near an industrial center. Flight data shows the plane rapidly lost speed after entering a sharp descent. The Boeing 737 plane was carrying 123 passengers and 9 crew members. There was no immediate word on deaths or injuries. China's last deadly crash of a civilian jetliner was in 2010. We'll bring you updated information on this story as soon as we learn more.
Meantime, sheriff's officials in Los Angeles are still looking into why one of their helicopters crashed over the weekend, injuring all 6 people on board. Authorities say the crash happened in the Los Angeles National Forest near Azusa on Saturday, where the chopper was responding to a service call. An air ambulance took at least 2 people trapped in the wreckage to a hospital. No one was critically hurt.
And now to the latest on the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Here are your Monday morning headlines, and it includes developing news of Ukrainian officials rejecting Russian demands to surrender Mariupol. Over the weekend, that city, as well as the Ukrainian capital of the city of Kyiv, suffered a barrage of attacks as Russia targets civilians, including children.
The latest reports say more than 900 civilians have been killed since the war started about 3.5 weeks ago, although the actual number is likely in the thousands. And as Russia continues to move in, more people are moving out, trying to flee the bombs and bullets. New reports suggest in total, 10 million people have left the country, including more than 3 million who are looking for refuge. NBC's Jay Gray has been following the war and the humanitarian crisis along the Polish-Ukraine border and has more.
Residential communities continue to be the target of Russian missiles, ripping apart an art school turned shelter in Mariupol with 400 people inside. In Kyiv, homes and a shopping center in ruins following the latest attack there.
It's unbelievable. I never see Kyiv like this, like now, what is going on. We have destroyed house, bomb, sea, and that's it.
Mayor Vitaly Klitschko encouraging soldiers on the front lines to hold their ground while other troops and volunteers prepare to patrol the capital city. Pressure that seems to be working. U.S. defense officials saying Russian ground troops are moving at a slower than expected pace. Chanting, "Go home," protesters seemingly turned back Russian military vehicles in the port city of Kherson. As millions continue to try and rush to safety, Ukrainian officials say more than 7,000 were rescued from the fighting Sunday on buses traveling through 4 humanitarian corridors. About 3.4 million people have now escaped across the border, about half of those children. Still, according to the UN, those refugees account for less than a third of Ukrainians left homeless since the start of the war. Jay Gray, NBC News, along the Poland-Ukraine border.
Meantime, Ukrainian women are not required to fight the Russians, but many are taking up arms.
Включаю і бачу вже на екрані танки. Вони якраз виїхали на рубіж мого пострілу.
Tatiana Chornovol is a Ukrainian journalist known for her investigative reports. But today, she is an anti-tank guided missile operator working in a frontline trench north of Kyiv. It's her job to destroy Russian tanks to stop Russia's advance on the capital. She says she recently destroyed a tank, causing it to literally fly off the road and into a ditch. Chornovol is a widowed mother of 2. Her husband was a volunteer fighter and was killed fighting in eastern Ukraine in 2014.
Police say one person is under arrest after a driver sped through a Dui checkpoint in Northwest Bakersfield early Saturday morning, leading to a pursuit. BPD says a man identified as 40-year-old Jason Crawford drove towards a Dui checkpoint on Hageman Road near River Lakes Drive just after midnight on Saturday. Officers reportedly tried to stop him, but he sped away, leading officers on a high-speed chase that lasted about 15 minutes. It ended on Brimhall Road near Coffee Road. Crawford refused to get out of his car for more than half an hour, according to police, sparking a standoff with police before he got out of the vehicle and was placed under arrest. Crawford was booked into jail for failing to stop at a sobriety checkpoint, felony evading arrest, and resisting arrest. And that was not the only arrest as a result of that checkpoint. Police say 1,100 cars came through. 3 drivers were arrested for DUI. 7 were cited for driving without a license, and 9 with a suspended license. Police impounded 17 cars. And just a reminder, if you see someone who you think is driving under the influence, call 911.
A local family is looking for a missing 15-year-old Miramonte High School student last seen more than a week ago in East Bakersfield. The teen's family says 15-year-old Kalia Maldonado was last seen on March 8th, possibly in the area of East California Avenue and Washington Street. The family says she's 5 feet 3 inches tall, 180 pounds, with short black hair and brown eyes. If you know anything about Maldonado's whereabouts, you're asked to call the sheriff's office at 861-3110.
The Kern County Museum held the grand opening of the Bakersfield Sound exhibit over the weekend. More than 100 people came out to celebrate the project, the product of decades of hard work. 17's Marco Torres has more.
Country music, food, and dancing were all a part of the celebration that led up to the unveiling of the Bakersfield Sound exhibit. But just what is Bakersfield Sound?
Bakersfield Sound's that wonderful, unique brand of music that was incubated here and born in Bakersfield in the 1940s and 50s, made Bakersfield famous in the 60s, and so we're celebrating that today.
The exhibit is the culmination of decades of work bringing artifacts and stories of Bakersfield's musical past to the present.
And this was a dream of the early musicians, and this building was brought here by them and artifacts given, and now after a long time, it is finally open to the public.
Original musicians from decades past signed postcards and instruments for people throughout the event.
We've got 6 of the original musicians showed up today to this. It's about community. I mean, these people are still here, they're still playing music. And the other part I really like about this is the actual artifacts. We've got pieces of the Trout's Bar, pieces of Texas Barrel House, so it really takes people back to a special time.
17's own Robert Price played an integral role in the celebration. His book is like the script for the entire exhibit.
The book is really a history of Bakersfield. It's a history of the migration, when the Yokies came out in the Dust Bowl, when people settled in this part of the country after World War II. They brought their music with them from different parts of the country, and that really has become the culture of Bakersfield.
17th Marco Torres reporting.
You know, it's so neat that that is there at the Kern County Museum, but we got to brag a little bit about our Robert Price. You know, again, he wrote the book, The Bakersfield Sound. So.
He literally wrote the book on it. Can't wait to go check out the exhibit.
A historic week on Capitol Hill kicks off today. Confirmation hearings for Judge Katanji Brown-Jackson, the first black woman nominated to the Supreme Court, gets underway.
President Biden picked Judge Jackson to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. NBC's Bree Jackson is in D.C. with a preview.
President Joe Biden's first Supreme Court nominee, Judge Katanji Brown-Jackson, begins an historic week of confirmation hearings today. She's become a familiar face on Capitol Hill.
This is her 4th time before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and 3 previous times she came through with flying colors and bipartisan support.
It's clear that her credentials and the breadth of her experience are impressive.
Jackson will face tough questions from senators this week, including criticism of her record on the U.S. Sentencing Commission and Republican attacks claiming she's soft on crime.
I don't want us to attack her as a human. I want us to be having a debate about what her judicial philosophy is, because when you go on the court, if you get lifetime tenure, it's because you don't confuse yourself with a super legislator.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's keeping an open mind.
I haven't made a final decision as to how I'm going to vote.
Jackson could be confirmed without any Republican votes if all 50 Senate Democrats stick together. President Biden wants bipartisan support.
For too long, our government, our courts haven't looked like America. And I believe it's time that we have a court reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation.
If confirmed, Judge Jackson would be the first black woman to sit on the High Court in its more than 200-year history. A retired conservative judge who served under the Bush administration will introduce Judge Jackson today, along with a longtime friend who's also a law professor. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson for NBC News.
Meantime, the Supreme Court says Justice Clarence Thomas was admitted to a hospital in Washington, D.C. on Friday with flu-like symptoms. The High Court says Thomas underwent tests, was diagnosed with an infection, and is being treated with antibiotics. They say his symptoms are subsiding, and he expects to be released from the hospital today or tomorrow. He plans to take part in any cases that he can't be present for using briefs, transcripts, and audio of oral arguments.
Also making news around the nation, weather conditions are continuing to fuel the flames of wildfires in Texas. Heavy winds and dry conditions are causing the fires to spread rapidly. So far, evacuation orders have been forced in 3 North Texas counties, including Hood, Erath, and Eastland counties. At least 2 firefighters have been injured while fighting the blazes. According to Texas A&M Forest Service, an estimated 11,000 acres have been burned in Erath and Hood counties, and containment has reached 10%. The Eastland complex fire consists of a total of 7 fires, which have scorched more than 54,000 acres.
Hundreds of Chevron oil refinery employees across the state are expected to go on strike later today after negotiations over a new contract with the oil company were unsuccessful. Nearly 500 unionized workers say they will walk off the job. Members of United Steelworkers Local 5 are asking for an increase in wages and for safety issues to be addressed. Chevron says they believe the contract that has been negotiated with the union for months now is fair and addresses those concerns. The strike could potentially impact prices at the pump. Chevron says operators at the refinery will continue, and it does not anticipate any supply chain issues. Hundreds of union workers were removed from the plant and replaced by non-union workers ahead of the anticipated strike.
The driver of a stolen vehicle has been arrested after leading police on a dangerous high-speed chase through LA. According to the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the pursuit began in the city of Industry. The driver, who authorities say was a woman, eventually surrendered to police in the San Fernando Valley and was taken into custody.
All right, our time now is 5:40, and experts say pollen season is beginning earlier, lasting longer, and hitting us stronger, especially here in the Golden Empire.
And if you get seasonal allergies, that's a headache or worse. 17's Chris Burton joins us in studio with experts' tips on dealing with pollen season. Chris?
I need to listen too, because I'm dealing with them bad.
For real, I don't know about you guys. I've been sneezy, I've been itchy. I've been 4 of the 7 dwarves.
I was going to say, what is your worst symptom that you get?
I get itchy eyes. It's the eyes for me.
It's crazy.
It drives me nuts.
To me, it's the post-nasal drip. It is just, it's constant.
Yeah, and that's terrible because that'll get you infections in the back of your
throat.
Right,
which I usually get sometimes every few years. Yep.
Well, luckily I caught up with a local allergist to give you all some tips on the best way to prepare for this brutal season. Seasonal allergies can be a headache, and a runny nose, a sore throat, and itchy eyes. And as the earth heats up, they're hitting us earlier and earlier.
Pollen seasons are now starting about 20 days earlier, and there's about 20% more pollen in the air.
Here in the Central Valley, the heat and the drought have brought pollen season into full swing already. Allergist Dr. Rick Tan says the best way to deal with the pollen boom is avoidance, not letting pollen stay on or near your body.
I tell patients, always shower, change from your street clothes when you go into the house, and also minimize the pollen inside your house.
But it's impossible to avoid all pollen. Tan recommends the use of antihistamines.
Definitely, second to avoidance, medications are definitely the approach for allergies.
But if they make you drowsy, a nasal rinse might be a good way to go.
This is kind of an old school way of treating it. You're pretty much just hosing down your nasal passages and making sure they're clean.
And every season comes with treatment myths. Like, will eating local honey give you pollen immunity?
The thought behind it, makes some sense. If you're exposed to the proteins, then you may develop some immunity. But one of the things against that is that digestive enzymes pretty much, neutralize or get rid of the proteins in your gut. So it's probably unlikely that you'll develop enough immunity.
Well, generally, seasonal allergies are non-life-threatening, but for people with asthma, which Dr. Tan likens to allergies of the chest, allergies can get serious fast. So be sure to check with your doctor or allergist about what treatment exactly will work for you.
That's a good point, because we have so many people with asthma here in Kern County.
Yeah. Yes, I know we do.
And especially, when we saw a storm like the other day, when we had that wind before it, it can kind of, everything gets kind of mixed up in the air. It blows everything. It aggravates all the trees and all the blossoms and can make it even worse.
And because we're so dry, it's even worse.
Right.
Very true. All right, Chris, thanks for the tips.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.